Author and poet Maya Angelou wisely says, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you." Well, there are parts within us that have untold and unshared stories, and they carry agony about it. These younger parts of our psyche, parts that make up our inner child, represent various ages and stages of our development, whether in childhood, adolescence, or young adulthood. And some of these younger parts have all of our life been secretly, or not so secretly, been hoping for a safe and caring adult or presence to share their untold story with. What if that safe and caring adult could be ourselves at the age that we are currently? Stay with us, dear listener, as we explore the path towards learning to love and heal our own inner child.
2 years ago, I had a year where I went to 7 celebrations of life. 7 in a year and a half. Family members, my eldest son's best friend from childhood. And so a couple of them were young people and most of them were elderly people. So because I've been to so many celebrations of lives and memorials and funerals in the last couple of years, is it really brought me face to face with mortality in a way I've not experienced in my life before. And so I'm more preoccupied now in my thoughts with eventual imminent death. And it informs my thinking differently now. I'm much more aware. I would say I was blissfully ignorant of my death before,
Yep.
but I'm much more aware of it. So I have had this experience of being scared that my partner, who's 9 years older than me, is not going to be around as long as I am, just because of our age difference. And I've been like pre-planning like how I'm going to mitigate that. I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, that is my organizer parts in my psyche trying to plan for grief.
You Capricorn, you.
Right? Thank you. This is such a new experience. I'm trying to plan for my grieving so that it won't be so painful. I'm like, oh, there it is. I'm trying to prevent emotional pain. And so just the experience of it's wild. Just the
That's
experience.
mind-blowing. That's mind-blowing.
It's also really common though, too, right? Like we'll do anything to avoid pain.
Well, it's like the primal that you guys talk about, that primal instinct. Like, I don't want to feel that.
Yes.
So I'm going to protect myself.
It's scary. It's hard.
That's exactly what it is. And it kind of leads into what I was going to share as a topic with you guys today is this tendency I have to try and mitigate emotional pain. It's a pattern. And where does this pattern come from? It comes from the overwhelm I experienced as a child, as a parentified child. Parentified child just means that I kind of took on the adult role as a child of helping my parents with their unprocessed emotional experiences, as well as just I tried to, as a peacekeeper, bring in functionality into the sometimes volatile home environment.
I'm sure a lot of our listeners associate with that as well, right?
I think so. I think a lot of the percentage of the population. When we look at it as a behavior, it's a very sweet thing. As children, we're trying to help the people we love, but we're just not equipped. This human need to love and be loved and try and create the environment to allow that to happen. It's very sweet. It's very like, wow, that's just such a beautiful human quality. But when we do it, when we're not equipped, when we do it as children, we repress our own needs, and children have very real needs. Children need to be seen and heard, not doing it for others. They need themselves to experience their own physiology and their own growing, developing ego. And if they can't do that, if the home environment doesn't support that, then they have parts in their psyche that become stunted. That part of us is kind of frozen in time. And being frozen in time, they respond to the world with like threat detectors. They're kind of like antennae are up. These parts in our psyche and our subconscious, the antenna goes ding like that and gets activated when something happens in the present moment that reminds our body of a past experience. And that's when our inner child psyche gets activated, is like something happens in March of 2023 that reminds 50-year-old Islena of a remembrance in her body from an experience or a series of experiences that happened maybe from 7 to 12 years old for me, for example, right?
Yeah.
And I bring that up because in midlife, especially for women, perimenopausal and menopausal, I feel like my perimenopausal journey is like a second adolescence. And it's often experienced as that for women, as like the big changes of our midlife are like another adolescence of waves.
Yes. Well, it makes sense on the hormonal fluctuations too, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm just so glad that you called it waves and not like a downhill slide.
No.
Because
I don't feel that way either.
Puberty is like you're going up the roller coaster. Yeah, it's so fun. Yeah, puberty. And then menopause is like, oh gosh, like we're going down. And so I just feel like, thank you for that, because there's going to be little like there's going to be up moments.
The waves.
There's waves.
Yeah.
Well, some of our up moments are just the freedom of expression that we have in midlife.
Exactly.
I would say. Yeah.
The liberation that can come with it. I'll say that I wanted to share this because I feel like we talked in a previous episode about practitioners that we lean into. And one of my favorite ones, which is my acupuncturist, we had a talk around the menopausal piece. And she shared that in Taoist wisdom, menopause is of significant for us as women because it's an indication for us to go deeper into these places. And I found that really fascinating because it was like, we feel like we've gone deep, but we're really starting to get into, as Islena mentioned, you're going into utero, you're going into the womb, you're going into these really like deeper depths of ourself to bring these things forward so that we can heal and, finish our lessons of this lifetime.
Can I go back, Islena, to you're trying to control the outcome, like when you're the grief piece, the mitigating future pain.
Yes.
Sorry, I wanted to go back to that because
Avoidance.
that's like what you're in right now. So like or you were saying that that's what you're feeling right now. So it's like, what is that? Like, are you bringing that part home? Are you bringing that part back to your system? Like, what is that?
What I came to recognize, and this is actually what I wanted to share with you guys today, is this understanding of which part of my inner child is up right now. Because when I can recognize that, I can recognize why I'm having the thoughts and beliefs that I'm having in the moment. Because depending on which aspect of my inner child that is wounded is up, I will have a particular set of thoughts and beliefs. And it can be quite different depending on which part of my inner child is up. So when it comes to the fear of my partner passing away, it's about fear of loss. And the fear of loss in me, from the work I've done, I've come to recognize that it's not all mine. It's actually not all Islena's. A significant part of it, I would say about half of it, is inherited from my grandparents. So my grandmother's parents died by suicide in the Chinese Revolution and loss of land in their business. My grandfather lost all his land, came to Canada, Chinese head tax, starting all over. My mom's experienced significant loss. She experienced the loss of her connection with her mother when her mom left from China and left her behind. So there's just so much loss that is actually not mine, but I inherited. It's in my DNA. It's that kind of epigenetic inheritance that we all get. I've been fortunate to be able to work through some of it, not fully healed, but I can recognize it. So when loss, the fear of loss is activated in my system, I have an inner child part that is very proactive, that comes online right away to rescue. And it's the hardworking part in me. It's the rescuer. It's the like Noah's Ark, build the ark. It's the build the ark part.
Parts you could control as well, right?
Yes. And this part has a tendency to get exhausted because it takes on way more than it should. It's the parentified part, it's the child trying to be the adult.
It's Islena with the hard hat. It's hard hat Islena.
Yes.
we know hard hat Islena, and we can't wait for her to show up to one of these podcasts wearing her hard hat, because she is a beast. And so we know that you build those arcs. We know with your own hands.
Literal arcs.
Yeah.
So funny. So that's the example. We've all got this hard hat, younger part, I think, that works hard in its own way and becomes very exhausted because it feels very alone in the world. This part of me feels very alone. This younger part feels like it's got the burden, like Atlas with the world on his shoulders. She feels like that, and that she's got no other choice. And so 50-year-old me needs to spend more time with her, showing her that there's an adult in the room, that I appreciate all the hard work she's done throughout her life, but she's not alone. And it's taken me actually a few years to really connect to this aspect of my psyche, to show it and demonstrate that it's not alone, because in the beginning they don't trust current age you because they felt so isolated in their work in your system.
Well, and also probably because of the ancestral piece, like it goes so far back. So probably that ability to trust.
Yes.
It's even takes more time to develop that trust with that inner child, because the fear and the wounds are generations behind, right?
Yes. And thank you for reminding me that this part of my inner child doesn't trust the universe, doesn't trust God, feels that she has to do it all herself. This was the biggest aha moment I had about this part of my psyche, was like, she doesn't trust that the universe has your back. She doesn't. So I was like, whoa, that's such a big feeling of aloneness. And this is the set of beliefs and thoughts. 50-year-old me, when I'm regulated, doesn't believe this, doesn't have these thoughts. But when some things trigger me that bring me back to these stuck in time beliefs, then I do believe that. And it's moments that I believe that, not because that's true, but because this part of my inner psyche is asking for support, asking for help. And if it doesn't get it, it will continue trudging through life with these beliefs and thoughts.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really big
realizations
and work. Yeah.
So how do you meet her?
So great question. What I've been doing is, these are parts of our subconscious that are deeply, deeply buried. And sometimes in our lifetime, we don't access them because it's scary to go there. But it would come out in beliefs or like moments of crying where you're like, I don't even know why I'm so upset, right? It's because of the beliefs of this wounded aspect of my inner child that believes she's so alone, carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. And for the first little while, connecting with her meant being with her sorrow. Kind of like sitting with your child when they're weeping uncontrollably. You just sit with them.
So like sitting with your inner child, it's the
same thing. Hand on the shoulder. Like sometimes I use the cue of like, I'll match my breath with what I imagine her breath would be like, right? So that there's a felt sense of a connection there, even though it's energy, but energy is real. It's a living entity. It's energy in my psyche. It just lives in this universe inside of my system. So being with it, spending time with it, so that this energetic aspect of me realizes there's another presence online. The witness, as we call it, right? And I think in my system, this part of my wounded inner child has been around so long and so deeply and so pervasively that I know she needs a lot of my presence just to sit with her because she has felt so alone. It's some of these are, I'm not sure if it's a term, but it's like the primal wound, so to speak. It's just so big, and it for me it represents kind of all the collective pain of my ancestry. Right.
Yes.
And I've chosen in this lifetime to take it on. This is not everyone's cup of tea. It's often, often really shitty work.
Totally.
Really. To be a cycle breaker is not fun. It fucking sucks. Like it's painful.
It's a lot of work.
Shit. It's a lot of work. I don't want to be doing this sometimes. I have other parts that are like, and then it's like, okay, well, it's there. You know how we said it, if we're not ready, well, if it's there, get ready. That just came through, by the way. I was like, I don't know if I was ready for it, but it's there. So get ready.
So here we go. Here we go.
Here we go. Here we go. Yeah.
It's almost like your hard hat, Islena, wants to say, I want to go build my kitchen now. But then your other hard hat, Islena, it's like your soft hat goes, no, this is like a different kind of work. And I'm calling you in. You're not allowed to put your yellow hat on. You're going to put your God hat on. And we're going to do, yeah, like it's almost like, cause I feel like that too. Like I want to escape. I want to escape and I want to go. It's like the runner.
Totally.
I want to go run this shit off.
Yeah.
And then I want to go clean my house for 5 hours and just forget about doing the soft hat work.
Yeah.
That is such a good analogy.
It's like Brene Brown's like hard back, soft front. Like I want to put my hard hat on and go and, work this shit out.
Yeah.
But you got to get your soft hat on and sit with that shit. And it's going to be hard. And it's a different kind of hard.
Exactly. So the steps towards love is joining, presence, giving your attention, giving your awareness, honoring, listening, seeing, validating, appreciating. These are all like kind of steps. It's like how to bake a cake. Well, you add the flour, you add the, vanilla extract, you add the baking soda, baking sugar, you whip up the eggs. And so all these little steps and pieces bake the cake of love. And this is, the inner child work is no different. We bring in ingredients, we bring in, the actions, the steps, and each time we're like, and we put it in the oven, sitting with it, and we bake it. And, it's simmering and it's cooking. And I say that because when people take on personal development work, it can feel overwhelming in the beginning of like, well, how do I love myself? And there's no doing in it. It's kind of more like it's a process of like, well, how do I learn to snowboard? Practice and repetition and consistency.
And I think, as the self-love thing has been a big one for me through, again, all the illness and my earlier experiences. And, really awareness has been the most important. And so the awareness piece, and again, meeting whatever that awareness is with that compassionate piece towards myself has been really, really important. Because self-love, yes, it can be in external ways, but it's really about when we recognize internal voices or these things that are happening, we have to learn how to meet ourselves in a different way, because we used to meet it with these fears, these shames, these other kind of things. So we're reprogramming ourselves to show up in that more positive frame, the reframe.
Whatever we're feeling in the moment is real, even if it's not true. And that's an important distinction. Like if my sad parts are feeling like I'm going to be alone when, my partner passes and I'm just going to be alone for life, like they're believing that feeling of the aloneness is real, even though the story they're making is not necessarily true, because the future is unwritten. Who knows what, people get into new relationships at 80 sometimes. I don't know. My future is unwritten. Who knows what's going to happen, right?
That's right.
I'll be like the wild woman at 80. I don't know. Or like the studious one. I have no idea. No idea. We'll just take it a day at a time.
It's almost like your mind is writing your story for you, but it's not.
Yeah.
The story hasn't been written. But
the story hasn't been written. Yeah.
But the emotions still have to get acknowledged. Whether
Thank
it's
you. Exactly. And witnessed, acknowledged and witnessed. And so I gave that example because the last couple of days I've just been with my extremely sad parts and normalized them, and not had to, like, what I noticed for my system was, like, I stopped trying to find out why. I was like, I'm just going to let you be sad and move through my system. My system's big enough to hold you like a hug if you need to move that sadness through. I'm not going to try and like force you to explain why, because it's like trying to force a child when they're like, why are you upset? And they're like, they just need to get the out of their system first and move it through. So that's, what I've been doing for a couple of days, and normalizing that, okay, well, it makes sense that I have the beliefs and thoughts that I do right now. I know this is temporary. It's not permanent, because I know what my regulated state is. My thoughts and beliefs are quite different in my regulated state, and that's okay. Whatever's moving through is moving through.
And you're going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be okay. Wow. Yes. What a great way to end. We are going to be okay.
Thanks for listening into SoulNet, everybody. If you liked what you heard here today on the podcast, please follow, like, and share. If you have topics you'd like us to cover here on the net, email us at soulnetsisters@gmail.com.